Hello everyone, welcome back to another track guide. This time we're at COTA, and before we get started, I think it's worth mentioning that I don't think this is a great lap by any means. However, if you are really struggling with this track, I think this guide can still be helpful. And with that in mind, I'll show the hot lap first, and then we'll get into the guide itself. So for turn one, I'm straddling the red and white curbing, and I'm making sure that I'm keeping at least 2 tires on the tarmac. Otherwise, you get an off track, and this is essentially consistent everywhere on this track. If all four wheels are off the track, you will get an off track. Tricky to find a braking reference for turn one. However, I am using this little camera post on the right, that pole. I'm braking. I'm aiming to brake before that. And it's very important that when you're turning in, you don't want to go over the crest because there's not a lot of grip out there, so you want to make sure that you're getting the car turned in before that. Ideally, you want to get closer to this orange curb on the inside and cut more of this inside curb, and the exit narrows pretty quickly, so you want to make sure you get a very late apex here. And for the beginning of the S's, you don't have to go all the way to the left. You can take this corner easily flat just by keeping the car in the middle. So I'm aiming to get as close to these orange anti-cuts. However, you don't want to hit them, because if you do, your lap is essentially over. And I'm just using a little bit of brake just to keep the car steady here. You don't want to carry way too much speed, because if you compromise your entry into one, then your exit will just be bad in the next, and it's just a chain of events really. So in between the second and third apex of the S's here, I'm flipping the throttle a little bit just to help stabilize the car. And for the final portion, right before I get to the final anti-cut here, I'm using very little trail brake. You want to let the car kind of wash out here, and you want to be very patient. and I'm aiming to pick the throttle back up when I get under this big sign. You want to bring the car to the left here. Very light braking once again, and I'm looking at the tarmac on the right hand side of this green AstroTurf as my reference. Again, getting as close to this anti-cut as you can, even closer than I did. You want to try to bring the car as much as you can to the left here. You likely won't be able to get all the way to the left, so about the center left is good, and you can carry decent speed. Really want to get the car to the right here, even more so than I did, as long as just keeping 2 tires on the tarmac. There's a bit of a compression at the apex here by this anti-cut, so make sure you're hitting this. Very little lift through here. I believe I short shift to third gear here. Once again, the exit narrows up pretty quick, so just keep that in mind. And coming out of that corner, the next turn is kind of blind, easily flat though. You just want to bring the car to the left so you can cut this inside curb, and you'll just travel less of a distance. So coming into the next hairpin, once again you want to straddle the red and white curb, but you don't want to line yourself up too early. I aim to do so once I get to the end of this red part of the surface, because if you do try to line yourself up early, this white line it goes out, or it goes in towards the track more a little bit, and here if the center of the car crosses this white line, you can get it off track. So that's why I'm not lining up the car super early, because it's a very easy 1x that you can pick up. I'm looking at the 100 board as a reference here. Once again, aiming to turn in very late, about past the 50 board. Cutting this inside curb, and again, like pretty much every exit on this track, it narrows up really quickly. So similar approach to the last hairpin. However, here I'm looking at the 150 board as my braking marker. Once again, trying to get a late apex and cutting the inside curb. And for this corner, not really any great reference points for braking here. You can kind of use the end of this grass on the left, and where the exit road kind of starts to fully be in contact with the AstroTurf. Really want to cut a lot of this curb here, all the way to the orange on the inside. A little bit of a lift through here to make sure I can keep the car on the right side. So for this sequence of corners, you want to purposefully miss this first apex here, because you want to keep your entry wide into here, because all the time here will be gained on the exit of the second apex. So make sure you're keeping the car kind of wide. You don't want to get close to this apex. Once again, I'm aiming to cut this inside curb, and like everywhere, like I mentioned, the exit really narrows up, so you want to make sure you're really getting a late apex here. So for this section, I'm just modulating the throttle. There's no need to brake here. As I approach the first apex, I'm lifting. And once I feel the car start to straighten back up, that's when I know I can get back on the power. So on the exit here, you don't want to wash out too far to the left, because it'll be pretty hard to bring the car back over to the right to prepare the next corner. So you want to be really no more than like to the center left of the track. Once again, tricky to find a reference for braking here. What I found works is using that white line on the left, on the red part of the surface there. I'm just kind of judging my distance there as to when I begin braking. You can cut a lot of this inside curb here. And for the final corner, I'm using this pit exit, or this exit road on the right hand side here as my reference. Once again, you can really cut a lot of this apex here. And that's a track guide for COTA. I hope you guys found this somewhat helpful. Good luck in your racing, and I'll see you guys next week for Road Atlanta.